This is everybody, I think, tonight. So I'm going to call the meeting to order at this time. It is 7 o'clock. Welcome both board members and the public here tonight. Appreciate having you on this beautiful August evening. If you would, just bow your heads for a word of prayer. God, we thank you for the opportunity to gather today and to debate, discuss, and approve, and Father, just to govern. And we're grateful for our part in governing, as the Bible describes it, to allow people to live peaceable lives. And help us with that. Give us wisdom to make good decisions so that our residents can enjoy peaceable lives and enjoy their families and where they live. Thank you for all those that serve here, are devoted on a full-time basis to the township, to improving it and keeping all the services and the protections necessary for people's safety and enjoyment. We're grateful, and we're thankful to be a small part of that. We just ask your blessing now and wisdom in this meeting. Lord, continue to provide for the township and for those who live here. Help us to be good stewards of these resources. In Christ's name, amen. Thank you. Stand with me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good. All right. Well, the roll is pretty obvious. We're missing two, but we've got a quorum. Both absences were pre-notified. Becky may join us late, depending on when she gets out of her duties at school. So item 5, the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved. Support.
Supported. Any discussion? Any debate? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the agenda is approved. Item 6, communication letters and reports. We actually didn't really have any, which is a rarity. Item 7, we're going to begin with a public hearing here related to the consideration of establishing Maui Greens, Inc. as an industrial district. This will be separate from your opportunity as a public to speak to any remaining items on the agenda this evening. That will immediately follow this subject, but you could speak potentially twice if you wish to speak to this issue, and then speak later at the appointed time for any other items on the agenda. So with that, is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Support. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, the floor is open to the public on the Maui Greens application for an industrial district.
And Jim,
know that you're here? Yeah.
Just for a note, we have Greg from Lakeshore Advantage, Anthony and Mark from Maui Greens.
Welcome, gentlemen. Glad you're here. I certainly wouldn't deny you the opportunity to speak to it if you wish. Obviously, no one is here apparently to disagree or debate. If you would, please, yes. Identify yourself and share a little bit.
Firstly, thank you very much for having us here this evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Anthony Harris. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Maui Greens. And if I get straight to it, like what is it that we do? We grow, simplistically put, we grow lettuce indoors. There's various phrases put to the industry: vertical indoor farming, controlled environment, agriculture. Essentially, that's what we do, or at least will do here in your township in Hudsonville. So we're coming here with the intention of establishing our main base here. So this will be the center of our research and development for automation, hardware, software, plant science. Growing lettuce indoors, vertical indoor farming, is a relatively new industry. Produce in the U.S. is about an $80 billion market, and leafy greens, which is what we grow, we just shorten that to lettuce, is about $6 billion. And today, controlled environment agriculture, indoor vertical farming, us, is a slice of that, 3%. So what we're doing as a company and doing as an industry is, without trying to make it sound too grand, we all see the macro problems in the world. There's water shortages, land shortages, labor shortages. So we're not out to supplant, replace farming. It'll be complementary to farming, and the world needs it, the U.S. needs it, and this industry is growing globally with companies like ours. So we're a startup, and we're developing a solution about how do we grow indoors, and we're going to base ourselves here in Michigan. And the why for that is skills and resources. So although our output is a plant, a lettuce, a leafy green, you know far better than I, this is a hub of automation expertise, and some of our earliest employees, to the Mark, was one of the employees spending a lot of time in his basement with a group of others, kind of developing ideas of how we'll do this. There's just a superb base, an employee base here. Ours is a high-tech business. The plant we could consider to be a widget. We're putting it through a process and shipping it out at the end. It's all natural, no pesticides. So for the consumer, it's a fantastic product. But the process is highly technical. It's a technology play that we're in. So we have the technologists, the hardware and automation people, and we're also, there's a lot of resources in this state from the plant science point of view. So we're already working with Michigan State University and some work with Greg about how we enhance that to do the plant science. So how does the plant respond to being manufactured indoors? So that's what we're here to do. Again, thank you very much for being here tonight. We think there's a tremendous opportunity. In terms of what does it mean, maybe just down to the job level, we see over 3 years, 60 jobs. They'll be the highest quality jobs in our company. This will be our R&D, our corporate center. That doesn't move. The reason we came here is because of the knowledge base here. We will establish other manufacturing plants in the years to come in different places in the U.S., but they will be essentially satellites on a copy-paste basis of everything we do here. And then as we're copy-pasting, the R&D continues here so we can move into other crops perhaps other than. So today's the start of, this is not easy, what we're doing. So it's a journey, several years to get where we want to get to. But we're, really pleased to be in this area. We know we came here because it's the right area. We could have chosen other places. We did look at other states, and in the end, we came down with the right skills here, and there's certain incentives that we hope to get that are part of that decision making as well. But again, we're really pleased to be coming to this township and into Hudsonville, into a factory that we've already chosen, and look forward to the next few years.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Well said. Wonderful.
Happy to take any questions, because I really shortened the technology part, but I think it's more the output that you're interested in.
How about at the ribbon cutting, you can show us more in depth one day.
We will have a ribbon cutting for sure. That's probably 3 to 6 months away, but we will do that.
Sure. Anyone else from the public that wishes to comment on this particular application now that you've heard more about it? Okay. Yes. Yes, ma'am. That's all right. You go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Our plant will use about 2% of the water of growing lettuces out in a field. The industry is at about 5% on water usage. So part of our technology is we grow the plant, let's just say, in one big room. Right, the things that outdoors naturally move it to a feed station where it's going to the water that we have to use to generally spray a field. So part of the problem that the industry is solving is land, so we can work working on industrial land, not taking farmland, and far less water. And
Fascinating.
Thank you.
Fascinating. Okay. Anyone, while the public hearing is going, I guess we could, during our debate, we could always call on him. So how about for the public hearing? If there's no one else, we can move to close that. Anyone wish to move to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Support. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, now, we can place a motion before the board. Anyone wish to make the motion to grant approval?
I make the motion to approve granting approval for the establishment of Maui Greens in the industrial district.
Support. Moved and supported. Now it's open for debate among the board. I'll say that, go ahead.
I would say just a few years ago, our local advanced newspaper would put this on the front page, and this would be just huge news for our community, and you'd have 10, 20,000 people that would be just elated that this is happening. It's sad that we don't have the coverage like we used to, but when you get to the point where you have like your grand opening and so forth, I hope you'll think about the news media, because this is just an excellent story that positively affects our community.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do that. We'll be pleased to take advantage of that and to kind of embed us in the community. We've got several employees who live in this community and in the wider area, and they're pretty excited about it as well. So for sure, we'll take advantage of that and take you up on that.
Also, the fact that you brought a number of people with you to in case there was questions, speaks highly of your organization. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
There will be an announcement later this year. We are working with the state on some incentives potentially as well. So once that all gets approved, there will be a formal announcement at the end of this year about this project. So there will be a lot more news at that time. So stay tuned for that.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Other board members?
I just love that you're coming to Michigan Salad Bowl or the World Salad Bowl.
Yeah.
It's just very fitting that you guys are the next technology to really take it to the next level. I'm impressed. Reading your stats were awesome. It's 40 times the crop yield, use 99% less water, no pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Everything that we love to see.
We all need it.
Yeah.
As I say, we're not replacing farming. That's not going to happen, but as a supplement to it, and it's something we all need on a macro basis. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. These are good high-tech R&D, high-paying jobs. We're excited to offer a rather modest tax break. This is not highly significant in terms of our budget. We're grateful to encourage you in that way.
Yeah, they are high-paying jobs. We've got skilled engineers who come out of automation integrators, in the wider area. And then we've got plant scientists. And of course, we'll also have some unskilled jobs, drivers and so on. But it's weighted way more to the top end. And we pay well, and we did some benchmarking with Greg and see what should we pay. And to be honest, we see that we're paying slightly more than that. And that's okay. We've got our own economics, which, tells us that we're doing the right thing. So yeah, it's a high quality, high job quality operation, and again, certainly here in our corporate base, or our engineering base, I should phrase it better as, because that's where all the front end work will be done for all the factories that we deploy throughout the U.S. in the future.
Wonderful. I have to confess, when we discussed this in finance, my first thought was this is a marijuana growing operation. I mean, Maui Greens, I'd kind of consider it if I were you. And I think most people, when they hear Maui Greens is coming, they think, a cannabis shop in Georgetown.
Yeah.
At a flash.
So we are Maui Greens as an official corporation, but we may rebrand to the market because everyone thinks that, and we're explicitly not doing that, and we will not do that. That's not where we're headed. I replied to Greg. I actually said, should I write explicitly that that's not what we're doing? Please. So we did. Yeah. But that is actually very timely feedback, because we like the name, but the implications are just too natural for everyone to think that it's something that it isn't. So yeah, everyone gets that wrong.
Any other discussion?
I had a brother who was a truck farmer, so I find it fascinating what you're looking to do, because he grew up all these crops in Hudsonville and different things on the muck farms on 36th Avenue there. So I look at this technology that's coming; it's pretty fascinating to me. So
yeah, great.
I wish you success.
if the board wants to take part in the guessing game, you can now guess where you think I'm from, because
Well,
so far we're 0 for 2.
Yeah. How about the Netherlands?
That would be a great guess.
Okay.
Great guess. That's actually the
Okay.
I'm only kidding, but
right.
so I'm from Wales in the UK.
Okay.
But I've been in the US for 23 years. But like I say, most of our employees are based right here. We're not moving too much. But the Netherlands is a great guess based on the greenhouse technology there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more than one way to skin a cat. Greenhouses are also growing in controlled environment agriculture. So there's
Well, Gordon Foods is doing this, aren't they? Gordon Foods is doing some succulents and stuff over there. Yeah, because I work for a company that built that whole section on the Gordon Foods. They were talking about it.
We are the salad bowl, but we have something here called winter. Did anyone talk? Don't even ask about that.
I was here 3 times last winter and I didn't see snow. And Mark keeps apologizing that I didn't see snow. I don't know.
Yeah. That's surprising.
It's a pleasure to be here, so thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask our clerk to call the roll.
All right. Mr. Belding?
Yes.
Treasurer?
Yes.
Supervisor?
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. Mr. Schwalm?
Yes.
All right.
5. Motion's passed. All right, public comments for any action items remaining on our agenda this evening. Does anyone from the public wish to address any items that we have yet this evening? Hugh? Sure. Step forward and can identify yourself. I think we know who you are, but...
Hugh Eisen, 6032 Sunningdale Drive.
Thank you.
I attended the planning meeting for future outlooks on the 12th, and I heard some very good suggestions there and promises. I know following this meeting, there's another meeting to discuss a couple of those, and I'm sorry I can't go to that meeting, but what I would like to do is, for future planning, improvement, or not improvements, but changes to the Veterans Plaza and the Veterans Memorial to include our newest branch of the Armed Service, the Space Air Force, or Space Force. So if you would in the future, and I know it's going to take some planning to update those things, but please include the Space Force. As a combat veteran from Vietnam, it's important that all of our services are recognized and appreciated. So if you would put that on some future schedule for planning.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. I'm going to generously apply your comments to Section 9, Sub 1, Sub 1 as pertaining to that item on the agenda. So there we go.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. What were you going to say, John?
No, I
right.
that's unique
Yeah.
and just something we never thought of.
I have to say I'm not up to speed on how far we've gone with that, with the Space Force.
It is established.
Yeah. It's the 6th branch under the Air Force, similar to Marines to the Navy.
I'd like to know what their song sounds like, and I'd like to know their motto.
You pulled their song.
There you go.
Rocket Man, maybe. John? I don't know. All right. Item 9, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Actually, there's a correction. The meeting minutes are incorrect again.
Okay, 9.1.1.
Yep.
Go ahead.
It just showed that Becky seconded the motion to adjourn and she wasn't here.
Okay.
Yeah, those have been corrected. I just pulled it up before tonight's meeting and it wasn't.
Might have been Kirsten. Might have been Kirsten.
I don't know, we could probably, well, I was going to say look at the video, but I'm not sure there was video. But,
Is there video? Talking about the motion to adjourn, right?
yep.
Okay. All right, well, is there anybody's got...
Your show, Becky?
Just because she was asked it.
Yeah, right, I understand.
It won't update, but I just pulled it up. Ryan Kidd. Oh, no, it is.
I was just, I hit refresh, so.
Okay. Well, I know we adjourned. So, pick somebody.
It was not Becky.
It was not Becky, yeah. I would agree. So, let's call that a typo. And I don't think we need to make any sort of formal motion. We just want to correct that before we approve of the consent agenda. Fair enough?
Yep.
So with that, we've had a motion and approval of the motion. Mike's pointed out something that's being changed. With that change, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. It's passed. Item 10, this is the 12th Avenue refund water sewer fees. This is for 6763 12th Avenue. I know we had dealt with something related to this individual maybe 2 months ago. Is there a motion to approve this refund?
So move.
Support. All right, moved and supported. Gary, you explained it the first time. I think it's pretty clear to us.
Yeah.
We received ahead of time what happened.
Well, it came back. We had looked at giving them partial, refund. And, after further investigation and discussion, we decided to give it all back except what we had spent as a township to put in the pipe and had to take it back out. We felt it really wasn't fair that we, got all his money, considering he's never going to have sewer hook there. He's never going to have water. We're not going to get anything out of this thing. So it was kind of unfair. I think there was a lack of due diligence. It really wasn't our fault. Really, it wasn't really his fault either. So after reviewing all the documentation he sent in, we decided it was best to give him back, refund his money for the water sewer assessment.
Anyone have any comments about that? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Item number 11, Park Pavilion rental rates. This is a potential motion to approve of raising our rental rates for our pavilion at Maplewood and 8th Avenue. Is there a motion?
I'd make that motion to approve, to approve the increase of the Park Pavilion rental rates for Maplewood Park and 8th Avenue to $75 for township residents and $175 for non-residents of the township, effective for 2023 reservations as recommended by the Finance Committee.
Support. And moved and supported. Michael, you wish to add any words to that? I know you talked about it at length with us at the Finance Committee.
Yep. I think just when we look at the costs, the increase in costs, staffing and maintenance, and looking at comparable townships and what their parks offer, we were incredibly low. So it was just, it was time to increase that. We kind of talked about different options, security deposit, that kind of thing. So it seemed to be the best option. And then also we've got coming up on the budget, I want to say $100,000 in repaving for those two parks. So another good reason to help cover those costs. So that's a big expense coming down the line. So this will help offset that too.
Yeah, every so often you've got certain set fees that unless tied to CPI, they look old after a while and they get behind. And this was certainly one we felt like it got behind, and that even with these rates, we're being very fair to our residents and honestly not terribly unfair to our non-residents.
I think if you rent the pavilion at Hughes Park, it's $100 if you're a resident. So that's comparable.
Mm-hmm. Most everything is about $100 if you're a resident. Mm-hmm. Anywhere from $125 to $175-ish for non-residents. So it's pretty much right in line.
Mm-hmm. And those two parks are fantastic.
Yeah.
When you compare them to some of the other parks, they have like a wooden teeter-totter and wood chips, where we have $1 million splash pad with fresh $450,000 in new play surfaces and new parking lots. So yeah, they're fantastic ones. And then one's got a view of the lake. So
okay. At this point, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the rates are approved. Item 12 now, the draft budget presentation. Each of us has received from our manager here a draft of the 2023 budget. And this is the initial presentation of it. It isn't certainly the last word on it, as you well know. There'll be public input as well as further board input. But we'll begin the discussion tonight. And it might be best if perhaps we began with our manager talking about it more from a macro level, and then having some initial dialogue with the board if people wish to tonight.
Yep. Thank you. Just to remind you, the budget schedule, today is the presentation of the manager's budget. September 12 would be an opportunity to offer any budget amendments, tentatively adopt the budget, and schedule a public hearing for September 26th. September 26th would be the public hearing, the setting of the millage rate, and the adoption of the budget. You have a copy of my budget report. This budget is based on input from the various department heads, input from Rod, and guidance from Dan Carlton. This appropriations budget is based on our best planning to allow us to serve our residents. And it's important to note, this is an appropriations budget. This is to set the maximum allowed to spend, not a mandate to spend. For the general fund budget, the total requested general fund appropriations is $15,241,082. This budget assumes no change in the millage rate at 2.25 mils. The general fund revenue budget also assumes the use of ARPA funds currently at $3.4 million. I'll discuss a couple $100,000 potential to add there in a little bit. But if you notice, there's 1.7 in the fire department budget. It's called federal grants. In the next report you get will show federal grants, ARPA in parentheses, but $1.7 million for a new aerial truck and $1.7 million towards roads. The capital outlay and major items by department are listed there for you. Listed out. If it's a placeholder, that means our best estimate in capital outlay expenditures from looking at historical and discussions with department folks. Again, nothing gets spent over 10 grand unless the board approves and vets that expenditure. Because of this budget, appropriations must be balanced. As you'll see from prior years, this budget assumes a contribution from fund balance of $732,557. The water sewer fund appropriations, which is towards the back of that report, is at $13,195,200. The water sewer revenue budget assumes the use of ARPA funds of $1.4 million, which in fact you approved in October of 21. That was specifically allocated for pump station improvements and replacements. It's important to note this leaves an ARPA balance of approximately $276,913. We got our second half of that $5 million plus just recently. And that would need to be allocated via budget amendment at the next board meeting, would be my recommendation. And if you were to allocate that $276,000 plus to the general fund, for example, towards roads, that would reduce the need on an appropriations of the contribution from fund balance. So, do I have any questions, any thoughts? Again, I would ask that you look at this for a couple weeks and then consider if there are changes that you want to make to this.
Appreciate it, Rob. I know those of us on finance have had a chance to interact with you at least to some degree already. And it's true that this is not, as I say again, our last word, but the board, especially those not in finance, but also those on finance, if there's things you wish to point out or discuss yet this evening, this is our opportunity.
I have a lot, but I will let anybody else go first, just because it's probably the same questions.
Yeah, it would be helpful. I mean, you've answered my questions pre-meeting, so the only one I need the clarity again, or I wish for it for all the board, is once the ARPA money has now fully been received, it's allocated, a good percentage of it being allocated toward things we expected we would have to pay for, whether that be the aerial truck or what have you. I still think of it as a board member as here somewhere. I mean, it was replacing things that we were budgeting for.
Right.
So there's some excess, if you can call it, whatever. It should make the general fund healthier. So how should we be thinking about our general fund right now? I know we have 1 million in the stabilization fund. What would be the dollar amount roughly that you would say is our general fund after we make these various ARPA allocations?
Well,
is it still in that 10 million
Yeah.
range? Yeah. Okay. So that doesn't, I shouldn't be thinking, I just want to be clear, I shouldn't be thinking a higher number there based on ARPA. It's right in that's still that 10 million range right there.
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
We finished the year, end of 21 at 11.5 million. So, you know, if you take out, on this budget, if you take out the ARPA funds and you take out, contributions from fund balance and you take out the fire truck, which are the big things, the budget really is, on appropriations about a 16% bump in appropriations from last year's budget, if you take those numbers out. So what it does is it allows for big expenditures like the aerial truck, going to 4 million in roads again versus, 2 million in 21. So, I'm not sure, it would make these expenditures a lot more difficult, or you would be relying on, a true contribution from fund balance.
Yeah.
Without the ARPA funds.
Yeah. Okay.
A little bit.
Jim,
Because last year our audit showed we made, after the books closed, was it 1.7 million? We came in under what was budgeted.
I don't have it in front of me.
1.5, 1.7. Historically, we've always been 1.5, 1.7 under budget. So that's, we're making money.
Yeah. That was Dan's style of, I guess, conservative budgeting, always estimating higher than what we thought we might need to spend. It might be why when we would say, well, can we afford to do X, you go, we have the money. Remember, we have the money, and say, okay, well, show me the money, and he would walk us through that. But
Yep.
yeah, I agree. We've always had I think that's a good thing.
Oh yeah, we have to have some. I think, and we as a finance committee will probably be discussing it in future meetings, is what's a healthy amount. I think we need to determine what that is, just to move forward, kind of have a vision for the township, so.
Jim, I stopped in this morning and talked with Rob for a while, and I appreciate, Dan was such a wealth of information. He was elected 7 times as trustee or treasurer, that they've got a strong working relationship, because this is incredibly difficult to put together a working budget and being on the job for 4 or 5 months. But I see a strong relationship built with Dan, and it looks like an excellent budget. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
So the only thing that I talked to Rob about this too, is utilities, the $550,000 for the copper lead program. I just think that needs to be fought. I know this is something that comes from the Flint water crisis, because they had lead pipe problems in all Benton Harbor. The township does not have lead pipes, and so what they're pushing for is for us to test different areas of the township to see if we have lead pipes, but we don't have lead pipes. So you're looking at, to be honest with you, at one time they were talking about doing 300 holes at $3,000 a pop. That's $1 million. So $550,000 is still $549,000 more than we should be spending on this, because we do not have lead pipes here. Unfortunately, we're getting dragged in, just like HydroCorp. We're being extorted by the state to pay that amount of money too. So this is one thing I talked to Rob about. I was like, that's a big amount of money that we don't need to fight. We got to figure out how to get around that, whether talk to Meerman or Victory or DEQ or whatever, because we don't have that problem here. So to have to prove that we don't have the problem for $500,000 is wrong. That's a lot of money.
It's ridiculous.
So that's one glaring number that sticks out for me that I really have a problem with. But I'm happy we're not raising taxes. We're 2.25. We're staying within our tax base. I think that's all good. So.
Yep. I talked to Joe Bush about it, the Eagle shenanigans. I talked to Brad Slaw. He said it's unconstitutional because it's an unfunded mandate.
Yeah.
So I talked to Rob about it. I think it's coming to finance down the road.
Okay.
Where we're going to hire an attorney. I said probably a constitutional attorney. I'm not sure. We need somebody to look at it. I don't mind spending, and I hate to spend money, but I think there's a good chance will win on this. And if we're talking saving our taxpayers $1 million, that's $1 million. That's, I wouldn't mind investing, I don't know, and finance will talk about it, but maybe $5,000, $10,000 in attorney fees.
That's why I'm bringing it up, because it's something, it's kind of a glaring number when you look at it. I mean, a lot of the things are, there's a lot of stuff to bounce around, but $500,000 to $1 million, a lot of money for something we do not have.
And Gary, and as I said before, remember, this is an appropriation.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's been spent, but it's our job to plan.
Well, I get it, but it's in the budget too, so you gotta figure out how we can work within that number, so, yeah.
So another one we need to fight too is the whole, vacuum breaker testing. So it's not $75, it's $150, I talked to a number of people. But with that one, we have the meters. Our current Mueller meters will flag us if there's any reverse flow. So we have proof to Eagle that there is no backflow. But I mean, it's government, so.
Yeah.
So I think that one's worth looking into too. But I guess while we're on the subject of DPW revenues and appropriations, did we find out where, because I know, so the board voted on allocating $1.4 million of the ARPA funds to the Bauer lift station upgrade, which was $678,000, call it $679, and pump metering, and I believe that was 4 lift stations, that was $740,000. So that's 1.418. But there's no appropriations in that department for it.
It's under, as I said before, it'll be under depreciation.
It's not depreciation. If you look at our audit.
It is a depreciation, Mike. It is depreciation. It would be depreciated over 50 years. So the yearly expense would be $28,000 and change.
And that's great, but there's an amortization schedule
Which
for
is 50 years.
Yep. So we'll jump, because historically we've been 1.6 for depletion and depreciation. So we'll see a little jump.
As you add fixed assets and they fall off, that number changes.
Yep. So we'll see a little jump, but not 1.4 million.
Well, 1.4 million over 50 years is, you'll see a depreciation expense added of about $28,000 per year. That's why I bumped depreciation in the appropriations by $100,000 to account for those things.
But historically, we're always depreciating the pipes in the ground and buildings, which is 1.6. So if we're adding 1.4, then we're going to be at 3 million for depreciation. No, depletion.
If we did the whole project at once and it was 1.4 million, it would add $28,000 annually to depreciation. It's amortized over 50 years.
So all our other assets that we have been depreciating and depleting end this year?
What's that?
They end this year?
No, they don't end. It carries on. So you add.
They're on an amortization schedule.
Yes. So you're adding to the 1.7. What's the budget? What's the budget number?
100?
1.8. 1.8. So you're adding to the 1.7.
And I should have brought one of my own.
And I would suggest we not go through this line by line. You can email me with questions. And any amendments you want to make, you would make them at the next meeting.
Yeah, so it looks like depreciation and depletion in 2019 was 1.5. And I'm sure if I looked at my old printed budgets, I'd see the same thing each year. Previous year, 2018 probably being 1.5. 2017 probably 1.48.
So what is your question?
So my question is, I don't see that these expenses that are coming up, and I think they've already started. I've seen bills from Prime and Newhoff.
They've done engineering costs so far, which have been expensed, and then they will be capitalized into that depreciation once the project's finished. But this is all CPA accounting questions.
Yep, and
not budget questions.
And that's the question I would have too, is if we're taking some of those funds, which is the ARPA allocation of 1.4 million, and we're using it this year, then it should go under 2022 activity.
Well, and again, this is an appropriations budget. If we did do that, we decided to do that, that's a journal entry for 2022. But when I'm doing this budget, all this was going forward. We allocated 1.4 for next year for infrastructure, was my understanding. But if they've spent about $110,000 on engineering so far, So it's not a big deal whether we put it this year or keep it at 23. Again, we're gonna have the $5,078,000.
Oh yeah, water department's got $13 million in their budget.
Right.
That's just it, they got the money.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm wondering is what's the advantage of not just putting it on the books?
Well, you guys determine that, and you guys can undetermine that if you want.
And that's my biggest thing, because that's 1.4 million, that's a pretty big chunk. But if it's not in appropriations and it comes up in 23, and then we're gonna have to do a budget amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's a pretty drastic change for that budget. I mean, that's 10%.
Well, and Mike, you could do it in 2 weeks as well. I mean, this is up to you folks. Where do you want that $5 million? Do you want it in general fund, or do you want it water sewer? And it's a good question.
And did we find out where, speaking of grants, so the Board of Elections gives $1,500 per precinct for new laptops for security. Did we get that grant?
The process is we've got some computers from the county directly, then we got some that'll be paid for, that we have to, we're in the process of getting the reimbursement. Yep. So, those are happening. It hasn't happened yet.
So we have not received that grant money.
I asked them that today, so she'll get back to me tomorrow.
Okay. So that would go, if we got it already, then it would go on 2022 as an amended budget? Or would that be 23?
Well, this is all up 23 appropriations. And remember, this is just an appropriation. It does not mean things are being spent. Everything has to be vetted and approved over $10,000. This is just the authorization to continue the operations of the township.
Right. And like I've said before is, I mean, I've been at this for 10 years in the township and I see how it goes. I don't like those blank checks sitting out there in an undefined category, because it always comes into the committee and it's like, but it's in the budget. Oh, it's cool. And that's what I don't like. If they need something, absolutely, we'll give it to them. Just let us know what it is. We'll put it on there. That's not a problem.
No.
But I don't like the blank check of 100,000, 200,000. That's a big number.
I've been here 4 months. I have not experienced that. So I can't.
Right, I'm telling you, 10 years I've been going through this with fine tooth comb.
For operational expenses or capital expenditures?
Capital outlay, miscellaneous expenses, it's just labeled different from year to year, so.
Okay, anybody else?
But I guess with part of my thing when I go through is like, I mean, little stuff like township board, there is no longevity pay, so that can get deleted out under that. Supervisor, so the elected officials don't meet the requirements for longevity pay. One thing I would like, and I'm not speaking for everybody, just for myself, I wouldn't like to see any pay increase.
You voted for it in the past.
Oh, I have to pull that up.
Well,
Was that last year?
I don't know.
No, it wasn't last year. But yes, I would.
An increase?
No, I would just say if we can get that down, because it's at 18,000. I think the way it's looking, just for the treasurer, he's only at 8,889. Well, it's budgeted at 22,000 from next year, so. And longevity pay can be deleted. And then I guess, so I'll try not to line item it, because I think I can send those to you and you can send them to the board where I'm thinking, so we're not duplicating. But one, if for capital outlay and footnoted to miscellaneous expense, until there's an actual description of what that is, I'd like to see those just out.
You talking about placeholder?
Yep, placeholder, miscellaneous, or whatever the terminology would be. I think it's probably pretty easy to say. I mean, they got a pretty good idea what they're looking for if they're asking for, say, $100,000 or whatever.
Well, we have those there because if we've seen through historical expenses, or they've had equipment or infrastructure costs, which we can't always predict by the item, it's a placeholder. Again, nothing gets spent or approved unless it goes through committee and full board.
And I did notice some pretty big jumps in each department on salary, ranging from 9% to 34%. And I think we talked about it a little bit, but I'm not sure. I'm sure everybody else doesn't I'm not sure if they've noticed or not. Are we adding people, or is that, I know we're integrating the assistant to the superintendent into all the departments. He used to be, I want to say, was it general expense? Rod used to be under general expense?
Yeah.
So, and that was a partial, under general and then partial distributed amongst the departments. I had asked, can it be a separate line item? I don't think there's a reason we can't. I mean, I think it's an important position.
Accounting, where he does his work, that's how we spread it out. You know how much he makes, so that's how it's going to be accounted for.
Well, and the reason I say I'd like to see it separate or just combine it with the superintendent. So superintendent / assistant to the superintendent as one. So that way it's a little, because it starts muddying up every other budget. So it's like, or every other department. I look at it and I'm like, well, holy cow, what's happening over here? And I'm like, well, maybe they're just distributing the assistant to the superintendent's salary across that department. That's why it jumped up. I don't know.
Well,
hard to track and look for
jumped up
patterns.
We have to plan for if there are increases. Nothing's been approved. Secondly, the general expense account, Department 201 is now eliminated. So those costs are now spread throughout there. So,
I just wonder if there's a reason, I mean,
yes,
the reason not combine the two.
The reason is it gives us accurate data on how much each department costs. And part of that, labor supervision, is his cost spread out. So I'm not changing it. You know how much he makes, and we spread it out over the departments.
That's what I'm saying, is it's not a secret how much he makes. That's why I don't know why we just wouldn't.
Because it gives a more accurate representation of what those departments cost with his salary spread.
So it's a breakdown on how much he's got a time card. He knows how much time he spent at.
Not a time card.
The senior center, and
it's a best estimate. I'm not changing it, Mike.
That makes sense.
Changing it. That's
very distributing.
Very normal accounting.
Because
it's very normal accounting.
Supervising each of those.
Yes.
Becky, welcome again.
Thank you. Sorry for my tardiness.
We're on the last agenda point. If you have any comments.
I don't. I asked the questions that I had about the budget of them and feel very comfortable with what we've been presented.
September 12th for board amendments, just in case.
Perfect.
You haven't heard.
And is there a reason we can't take the $276,913 and put it into roads right now as a board? I mean, just so the next time we look at this budget, it's in there? I mean, Is there a reason we can't?
Well, you have to do a formal amendment, which typically would happen next meeting.
Whether we do that today
And
or
it's just a placeholder, so it really doesn't matter. I mean, just because it's there doesn't mean we have to spend it.
No, Mike, I think that's a good thing. I just don't want to tell you what order to do things.
Right.
And I'm looking at what you did historically, but it doesn't mean you can't.
Right. Whether we do that today or do it on the 12th,
I think it should be put on the agenda next month or whenever our next meeting.
Sure.
Technically. So just to remind me, because this is only my second time around, basically, Rob has presented a budget draft. This will go to finance next?
No.
No.
Let's go right to the next board meeting.
Next board meeting. Will the public comments come next board meeting too? Can.
Yeah, most likely come to hearing on the 26th, the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank you for the presentation of the budget.
Yep.
There's a lot to go through, and we look forward to the process playing itself out. All right.
And one quick clarification, so if I send questions to you, you can send it to the board members? Yep. For the answers, and we're not violating open meetings? Questionable.
You good on that one?
I guess as good as I can be with what I got.
Okay. Second public comment period. Wish to address the board, you're welcome to do so at this time. Identify yourself. You're able to speak to any issue you like. No pressure, you don't have to, but glad to have you here. Seeing none, we'll close the second public comment period. Discussion and general information from the board here, looking to my right, left.
I shared some pictures from the Historical Association's event over the weekend. It was very lovely. It was very nice of Representative Meerman to stop by, and the governor's office had also sent a recognition of their anniversary, which I passed along with ours. I took the proclamation that we had passed, and it was one page front and back, and instead I just reformatted it so that it was an 11 by 17, so that it matched the size of the one from the governor's office and framed both. And it was a lovely event. So thanks for your help with that.
Yeah, thanks for representing the board.
And I apologize for my tardiness. We had open
Actually, we weren't expecting you, so you got here quickly. All right, then toward my left, the other two gentlemen. Nope. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Go for it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.